What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today is Tuesday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And today we're talking LAFC. We're talking black and gold. They had tough, I guess you would say, 1-1 draw against the Houston Dynamo. Not a lot of people expected that. They did have Diego Rossi back. We're going to get into that. But here to help me talk all things black and gold, we got Alicia Rodriguez once again. And we have Josh Gross from Southern California News Group. How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us on tonight.
No, thank you for being on, Alicia, once again. We got to talk about some stuff, Alicia. People have been using your words word for word. Some broadcasters been using your word for word and not giving you credit. And I was listening to the broadcast, but we'll get into that. We don't need to get into that the meat of the bone just yet.
What's going on?
No drama. It's I guess I'll just acknowledge it. So, well, this is what I remember. So me and Alicia did a podcast about Carlos Vela's contract, and we're watching the broadcast of LAFC versus the Houston Dynamo. And literally the word for word, what Alicia said on my podcast is the same thing that they said on the broadcast. And I text Alicia, I'm like, sounds like they listened to the podcast episode, but didn't give any credit. So and I think there's more, but yeah, that's the gist of it. Alicia probably can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when it seems like whatever you write or say makes an impression. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. But I do go through periods where it seems like the broadcasters on television look at my work and then don't acknowledge anything from it. And that gets kind of on my nerves a little bit sometimes. All I'd like is a quick shout out once in a while. No big, nothing. I don't want the moon and the stars. But that was one of, I think, 3 separate examples over the weekend. So I was a little bit peeved at repeatedly hearing, wow, I'm pretty sure I wrote that. And having it come back to me and then, just happened to be said, and then they moved on, and it was like, okay, well, I guess that's how it goes. But so that's what happened. But no, it's all good, obviously. Well,
no, it's not good. I'm here to set the record straight. Look, broadcasters, if you guys are listening to this podcast episode or any of them, give Alicia her credit. She puts in a lot of work. That's why I love having her here. She's very knowledgeable. You just got to give her credit for using word for word. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm just saying that if you see something good that you like from anyone, pass it along, pass the word along. I heard something great that Gio said, so on and so forth. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. That's it.
So there you go, Josh. Now that's the gist of it. So now not onto you. I know we just kind of threw you into this. I know people aren't familiar with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been covering? Well, obviously I know how long you've been covering LAFC, but let the listeners know and the people watching know how long you've been covering the MLS and LAFC.
Sure. I've been a sports reporter for 20 years. And I just want to say for Alicia and anybody else who's a reporter, writer, journalist, thinks about these issues, cite people whose work that you are using and referencing. It's this simple, basic tenet of journalism, and just do it. It's not hard. And, the whole sort of community benefits by that sort of stuff. I honestly believe it's been my experience. So I said I've been covering sports for 20 years, mostly combat sports. I was in the early days of mixed martial arts. Started, like, the first story I ever wrote was in the year 2000. So even before the UFC ownership that we've known now for so long was part of the sport. I got a chance to travel the world covering mixed martial arts. I always grew up a sports fan. My education was reading the LA Times sports page every morning in my high school classes. I didn't look at my teachers. I read the sports page. And so that was, really how I fell in love with it. I'm LA born and raised. You can see the Sandy Koufax.
Hey, there we go. Dodgers, baby.
Yeah. I'm a diehard Dodger fan, always been. I was 12 when they won the World Series in 1988. So you can imagine, like, that meant a lot for me. And it's just a city of champions. I've always loved journalism and sports, and eventually combined the two. I went to San Diego State and wrote for the school paper, and just really sort of jumped into mixed martial arts at that point, dropped out of school, which probably wasn't the best idea, again, for people who are interested in journalism. Lots of sports journalists do drop out of school. It seems like it's a trend with us, but not all of us. And I think there are some disadvantages over the course of my career. I've learned to not having a degree. I think that'll come into play. But I felt like I learned journalism by doing it. That was the number one way to learn, the only way really to learn and to get ahead. And, I had, pretty good career in mixed martial arts. I edited some major independent media that was the first to partner and was a content partner for ESPN. I left that site, which is SureDog.com, which I'm actually back as editor of large now. I left that site to go be the mixed martial arts reporter for Sports Illustrated. I was there for 2 years, and then I left for ESPN, worked there for 3 years. I wrote a book after I left ESPN. I've worked for a lot of places, contributed to The Guardian. All along the way for me, it was just doing journalism in this world that was mixed martial arts. I never considered myself a fan anymore. I haven't been a fan of the fight game for a long time. I treat it differently than that. And so when I felt like there was an opportunity to cover something new in LAFC, I really kind of pushed for the chance to cover it from the start. And I didn't get quite the start. I wasn't there in 2017. And the first couple of games, I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to cover or not. But the first game I ever covered in soccer was the LAFC Galaxy match when Zlatan came on.
Oh, so wow. That's an amazing game.
I got a great intro to the sport, to the rivalry, to what soccer in Los Angeles means, to the passions of all of it. I sort of jumped into the deepest end. And it's been fun to cover. I covered the 2019 season. And then I got a job offer early in that season to work for The Athletic, to cover mixed martial arts full time. And that was a grateful, unbelievable moment to sort of just be able to do that. It's hard to make a buck sometimes in sports media, and I've struggled sometimes along the way. So when an employment like that comes along, you're grateful. I had to jump off the LAFC beat, but then COVID hit. I was one of our section. The mixed martial arts section was brand new. They brought on 8 of us. Basically, they poured a bunch of money into developing what they called the dream team. Then COVID hit, and they cut basically 3/4 of the section, including the editor. I lost my job, but I was grateful to have that opportunity. And there were some advantages to being employed that I'm experiencing now, obviously. And one of them is getting to cover LAFC again. So I did write about LAFC a few times for The Athletic. There were articles I could pitch and do, and their soccer section's unlievable. I think they do incredible work covering MLS
best in the game.
And other sports. So the chance to contribute to that was great. I do kind of feel like an imposter sometimes in the soccer world. I don't pretend like I know everything, or I've known any, I know as much as people like Alicia and you. But I just come from a perspective like I'm observing, watching, learning, wanting to share information and bring basic journalism to it. And I love soccer. I grew up playing soccer. I think the reason I was so interested in LAFC is because it did feel like a Los Angeles team to me. I never felt that necessarily about the Galaxy. I never cared about MLS, quite honestly. LAFC just felt like a different experiment that I wanted to be around from the start. And in some ways it has been. In other ways, I've had a really big education on MLS and learned what MLS is. And I actually like the league a lot. It's fun to watch. There are parodies unbelievable. I think there's great pluses and some really crappy minuses to the league. But this is the ecosystem that it's in. And I've had a good time. I'll just wrap with this. I've enjoyed myself, the limited experience, 2+ years, going on 3 years now that I've had to do it. And a chance to talk about with you guys and, enjoy it. I appreciate you having me.
No, hey man, appreciate you giving us the rundown, so everybody knows now about Josh Gross.
You asked for 5 to 10 minutes.
So honestly, that is perfect. That is literally perfect, so people can understand, especially the LAFC fans, can get a better idea of who we are. And I think Alicia and I know this. When it comes to MLS, we're always learning, because there was a situation we were trying to get something down of a DP or whatever it was, but I mean we're still learning as well. But I like that you shared that, and I like that what you shared about LAFC, because I think that is the intriguing part of LAFC, right? It's newer, it's different from LA Galaxy and how they're going about things, right? So I like that you shared that. I know there's a lot to get into when it comes to El Trafico, but before we get into that, I want to recap LAFC's versus Houston Dynamo's game this past weekend. It was a 1-1 draw. I know looking at Twitter and looking online, a lot of fans were very disappointed because they felt like this was a win. The Houston Dynamo have not won any games in the way, the LAFC was going into this game. They had just tied against Seattle Sounders. They're getting Diego Rossi back. Alicia, give me your overall thoughts on how LAFC performed against the Houston Dynamo.
Yeah, the Dynamo did win their opening day game, but I don't think the expectations are big that they're going to be a contender necessarily this season. So I think coming in, LAFC thought this was a winnable game on the road. I think they think most games are winnable on the road, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, I think that the game was a little bit choppy. Well, actually, very choppy. I think there were moments where LAFC played very well, but they just didn't have kind of that incisive cutting edge that, you know, kind of their best performances display. And this was a game where you said Rossi came back. He didn't look great, but he didn't get a lot of opportunities. There was one really good scoring chance, I believe, in the first half. And that was about it for him. It was a really kind of a tough day for him, just as far as getting on the ball and getting opportunities to score. Having said that, they got a goal, but the disappointing thing was they immediately conceded, and I think that's what really soured them for the day. If they hadn't taken the lead and then immediately coughed it right back up, I think they probably would have said, well, you know, it's the road. It's tough to get results on the road, but just the manner in which they ended up drawing, I think the team themselves were really disappointed by. And, you know, I think when you have high standards, then that's not such a bad thing to expect to win. And they got a draw. They're still unbeaten on the season, but I do think that the tone was right in sort of thinking that it could have been better, and they need to pick it up for the next game.
Yeah, no, I think that's how everybody kind of felt. And, you know, even talking about Bradley after the game, you kind of got a sense of that, and some of the players as well. Josh, what were your overall thoughts on LAFC's performance on, I believe, Saturday?
Yeah, they were not sharp. Lots of missed passes and bad spaces. First touches, not good. That kind of stuff stood out to me quite a lot. You know, I thought Diego Rossi, I think it was the 12th minute where he had that really great chance of Edward Atuesta made a turn and delivered the ball to him. And that was just a great save to keep the ball out of the net. But, you know, he played 90 minutes. And I think that's a really good comeback, shows he's fit. He can jump right back into his usual 90 minutes. I mean, he's been a workhorse for the team. So I think that's a great sign. It's a tough way to not sort of, I think Alicia's right. When you give the goal right away, makes it tough. A draw on the road, not the worst thing, but that sucks. And it's going to get hammered into them in terms of mentality. You got to stay sharp. You know, all the things Bob talks about, I think factors into that. I did think that Houston played well. They created a lot of chances. They do have more speed on the outside now, and they press in good spots. I think Bob talked about that before the match, the danger of that. He also mentioned Pasher and Fafa Pico, and they played big parts. So no surprises really for what Houston was going to do. Look, they've scored 4 goals in 3 matches. Carlos has played 22 minutes. There's no surprise, right? He generates so much for them. They're going to have to hope that he can be healthy, and they'll figure out some other ways to do it. But I thought, for as poorly as they played in terms of touches and passes and giving away opportunities, the draw is not the worst result.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way, because they could have easily lost the game the way they were playing. Like you said, they weren't sharp at all, and whether it was the turf, I saw a couple players slip in. You know, I don't know if that had to do anything, but whatever it was, the travel, whatever, they just weren't in sync of what we've seen so far from this LAFC team. I want to go deeper and kind of go by some position by position players. Alicia, what were your overall thoughts on Marco Fafan? I believe he got his second start at right back. Tristan Blackman, I think he was still going through health and safety protocols and wasn't. I think it was told that Bob said that he wasn't at full training, and I think that's the reason why he didn't get the start.
Okay, that makes sense, because he was on the sideline warming up, but he didn't get in the game. So obviously he was available, but or did he get in the game I can't remember.
I think he got in the game towards the end. Yeah.
No, I think Farfan, I thought he did well in the game against Seattle. You know, he kind of was thrown into a pretty tough assignment, and I thought he did pretty well. A lot of fans were kind of on his back right away, which I was a little bit surprised about. And then this past weekend, I don't think it was as good of a game for him. I think there was more scrambling in general in the defense, and I think some of it was kind of a knock-on effect of what was happening at right back. And Jesus David Maria was like, coming over to cover sometimes, and the fullbacks were pushing up, and kind of there was just some scrambling that was happening defensively. I don't think that was all down to Farfan, but I think that this was more of a game where maybe you saw that right back isn't his natural position. It's a position he's learning right now. So, it's kind of a work in progress. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think, because the fans seem to have made him the scapegoat in the early weeks of the season, which I think is a little bit, overblown in my opinion. But maybe you guys think that he's struggling a lot more than than what I've seen so far. I don't know.
I don't think he's necessarily struggling. I think he's, if he's playing left back, then you're asked to play right back and, cover for Tristan Blackman, who's looked amazing, right? But Josh, let's get to your thoughts. What are your overall thoughts on Marco Farfan so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it. Bob feels he can play on the right, but that's not going to be the first position you put him in, right? So he's really stepped in. I think defensively, he's had to get up and down the field a lot. That it's required of playing on the outside back position for LAFC. He's gotten into the attack, I think, pretty good. He's made some chances. He's helped. But then, you got to get back and you got to be in position. And it feels like that the transition period for newcomers coming into the system is always hard, always difficult under Bradley's system. And Farfan, for him to play as many minutes as he had this early in the season and in a spot that he probably wouldn't have been accustomed to doing anyways, he didn't play there before, really. I think you have to give him a break. Like you can't be too hard on him. He stepped in. He's been healthy. He's gotten minutes for you. You've needed that this season. You've had already enough weird knocks and things happen to players. So he stepped in and I think did the job, and they haven't lost with him on the field. So it sounds like fans getting a little too looking for criticism when there maybe isn't one, and feeling like they should have 9 points instead of 5. There's just high expectations which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, I was talking with some fans afterwards. They're very upset. They're very upset that they got the tie. The tie, obviously, like you said, this team comes with high expectations, and you expect them to perform. But I look at it the same way. I don't, I wouldn't blame Marco Farfan. I think he's looked solid. Obviously, if the left back is going to be his position, and he's playing quote unquote out of position. I mean, he's doing a solid job. The team is, LAFC is getting tested in their depth right away from the start, right? Vela went down. Diego Rossi wasn't available. Tristan Blackman wasn't available for whatever reason. He's still getting back. So, right. So it just makes it that more challenging for LAFC to get back into things, and you got to move pieces around. But so far, we know Marco Farfan is not going to be the right back starter. We expect Tristan Blackman. We expect Tristan Blackman will be healthy come against the LA Galaxy this weekend. But we'll have to see what happens with that.
I will say this: I talked to John Thornton before the season, and he mentioned Farfan and expected him to get not only just a lot of time but starts. So he's a guy that they brought in, I think, to play quite a lot, and he's got his opportunity early. We'll see if gets in a more useful position, or fans sort of take it less hard on him if he gets into a spot where he's comfortable, but he's going to play.
Yeah, I think that's going to make it interesting too, because we still haven't seen Kim Moon-Wan, but we don't even have to open that can of worms, because I mean you got 3 players right there. I mean, Farfan right now looks like the second option. I would still go with Tristan Blackman if Tristan Blackman is healthy, right? But I think if we look at, I want to look at to the midfield, right? There's been a lot of fans they're very upset that Jose Cifuentes is not starting, and obviously. Who would Jose Cifuentes replace? Obviously, it's not Latif Blessing. It's not Eduardo Tuesta. It would be Mark Anthony Kaye. And fans are very upset, and and they want to know why Jose Cifuentes is not starting. I don't have the answer to the question, but we're here to discuss that. Alicia, what are your thoughts on Jose Cifuentes, and then give me your thoughts on Mark Anthony Kaye?
Yeah, I think Jose is a really exciting player. I think he's a player who could potentially be best 11 as well in MLS. Like he has a really high ceiling. He's got an attacking edge that I don't think the rest of the midfield core has. And so that's why we saw him start as a false 9 a couple weeks ago in a pinch. And he did a reasonable job, I think, at that position on the day. No, I mean, I think that LAFC really have 5 starting caliber midfielders, and they have 3 spots. And so there's a logjam. And I think I asked a couple weeks ago to Bob about rotating. What are your thoughts? Are you going to be more proactive in rotating? Are you going to kind of try to keep a good core together? And he, took a little bit of umbrage, I think, at the question of like, well, I rotate a lot. It's not a thing. Which fair enough. I mean, I would have to, I guess, pour through the patterns to really see, which trend is the right one. But
there's a trend, I'll tell you that, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think I think there is going to be a lot of rotation. I just don't know at what point we're going to start to see it, unless it's necessitated by international absences or injuries. I mean, obviously, if those things happen, it's very easy to move players in and out. But if everyone's available, then at some point you have to kind of decide. But speaking of scapegoats, I think Mark-Anthony Kaye is another player who a lot of fans kind of jump on his back about. And, you know, is he a perfect player? No, but none of these players are perfect, right? Like, that's the whole point of sports is, you know, people have different skill sets and strengths and weaknesses and whatnot. And I think Mark-Anthony Kaye brings a lot to the table. And for whatever reason, there's a segment of fans who, you know, really like to key in on him and think that he's the odd man out or should be the odd man out for somebody like Cifuentes. But I think they're both really good players. And so, you know, it's like, what are you going to do? I mean, this is, you know, it's an embarrassment of riches, really, and when it comes to the midfield.
Yeah, I think what makes it difficult is that, you know, we see some of the capabilities and some of the versatility that Jose Cifuentes can bring, right? And I think that's why people keep reaching out to me, and I'm like, I literally don't have the answer to the question. You have to ask Bob, right? Bob is not really giving us too much. And the reason what I mentioned that there isn't a rotation is what I meant by that is when Jose Cifuentes comes in, he doesn't come in for a midfielder. This past game, he came in for a Poku. So that's what I meant by that. Like the rotation of midfield. If Jose Cifuentes is coming to play a false number 9, is he going to be looked as a false number 9? I think, you know, I would like to see him play. Obviously, they lack a little bit of depth because of the injuries, but I guess that's what Jose Cifuentes can bring you off the bench, right? He can be the offensive weapon. Josh, what are your thoughts on the midfield situation, which is great, by the way, but there's a lot of fans making very upset about Mark-Anthony Kaye and a lot of fans wanting Jose Cifuentes to start.
Before you're done, you're going to have to tell me where fans are really happy. Because they can't be upset about everything, can they? I guess they can.
Oh, they definitely can. Yeah. They definitely trust me. They definitely can.
I guess they can. I like, you know, LAFC has wanted to cultivate depth. This has basically been their plan since year one, to get a roster that's too deep in every position at least. They have that coming into the season, and fortunately for them, it's paid off early. They've been able to rely on players and call up players that have needed. But yeah, so it's a good problem, right? This is one of those classic good problems when everybody's healthy and Bob Bradley has to make his money and select a lineup, right? That's basically what it's going to come down to. They're relying on the competition at the practice facility to sharpen the team, to make everyone better. And out of that will emerge who you rely on. I don't think, you know, just because, you know, Sifu seems to have a cannon for a right foot and can knock it in outside the box. I don't know if LAFC is going to score a goal outside the box this year. We'll see. You know, he's a guy that can do it. That's interesting for people. I also feel like Mark is a valuable presence on the field that you don't notice sometimes. His length, his ability to create turnovers, to press, like get the ball back immediately. He is big there. He's a major factor there. And I think LAFC misses something. I'm not sure if Sifu is a replacement for that or can do it as well. So there's trade-offs. You know, I think fans should sort of just trust, you know, you do Bob the Builder. So he's going to know what to put in at what point. You got to trust his decisions on it. Everybody sort of has their favorites. This is not FIFA, right? We can't just go all offense all the time. You need certain players just to sit back and do their work. I would like to see Mark become more offensive. I think he's too tentative, especially in front of the 18. Sometimes he'll dish the ball off an extra pass that doesn't have to be made when he can maybe strike it. More of that would be nice. But, you know, he's a good player and they've relied on him. He's a core player, a key player. And I think from a leadership perspective, you can't really compare him and Sifu. Mark-Anthony Kaye has become a leader of the LAFC franchise.
That was so key that what you just said.
That's a major reason why he's not going to come off the field unless Bob has a reason that he has no choice over. I think Mark-Anthony Kaye is a staple for him.
I think you just hit the nail on the head with that. Which fans are not either way are not going to be happy about. But you mentioned Bob Bradley relies on him, which I've mentioned to fans before. And second, he's a leader. Bob Bradley sees him as a leader. So that's what I try to tell people. And it's all about relationships, right? Who do you have a better relationship, who you see, right? And I think for Mark-Anthony Kaye, that's who Bob Bradley sees, a player he can rely on. He's been there from the start, and also a player that he sees as a leader. We have a question, a quick comment from a fan here, from Edgar Quesada. He says, it's a long one. He's like, I think it's more of if Kaye messes up, Sifu is there, why not play him? if Rossi messes up, there's no one to bring him up to that caliber of game Rossi delivers or not. Who can bench Rossi even when he's had bad games? No one. I guess what I mean is that we have a replacement sitting on the bench who's already proved to be better than the starter from what I've seen. That's just my opinion. I mean that's fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I like the comment, and I think you bring. I think what Josh said though is Bob relies more on Mark Anthony K and is a leader. Not saying Sifu can't be that, but I think that's the sense we all get from Bob Bradley and why Mark Anthony K is starting. And on the other side, there is that option, right? You just mentioned there is that offense. I think some things that I saw is that people were upset that no one was shooting from outside the 18. And people can bring it up. Well, Sifu would be willing to do that, and we've seen that from Sifu, right? And I think it's tough though. I think it's the thing that's difficult for Bob is to switch out your leader and bench your leader, right? If he does view him as one of the leaders in the group, you don't really want to do that because I think you may want to bring down his confidence. Now, if for whatever reason he's not having a good game and he is really affecting the team on a negative way, then changes will potentially have to be made. But I don't think we're at this point just yet. But I think a lot of fans would like Jose Cifuentes to start, and that's fair enough because there is competition. There's fair competition at almost every single level within this team. Thank you, Edgar, for that question. The next thing I want to get into is the front three that they had. It had Rossi, Baird, Mahala. I think Mahala has looked amazing. Baird, he's had 2 goals in 3 games. And Rossi, obviously, we said it was first game back. The good thing about Rossi, he played 90 minutes. I wasn't expecting Rossi to play 90 minutes, but that's a good thing when we go on to face El Trafico. What are your thoughts on Corey Baird? I know he talked about after the game that he didn't feel like he had his best game, but what are your thoughts on his play, Alicia?
Yeah, I think Baird's fit in pretty well so far. I mean, especially given the fact that the 2 main stars have barely played in the forward line, and he kind of was like, okay, you're next. He's produced, and they've been consequential goals, right? It hasn't been garbage time goals. It's been goals that actually get results. So I can't complain there. The kind of goals he scored as well, I think, have been good signs. I guess I'd say. He had a good. He was just hanging out on the back post, and he was open and got the pass. That's a great spot to be in. And then for his first goal against Austin, it was deflection, to be fair, but he got the pass in a pocket of space and took a shot, and it ended up in the goal. So that's what you want to see. So I think he's been pretty impressive so far, and I think a lot of people have, and not just fans. I mean, kind of like the pundits and whatnot have sort of said, well, it's LAFC. They need to go get a star number 9, and I don't necessarily think that's true at this point. If the stars can get right and get healthy and have a good run, I think that the likes of Corey Baird and Danny Wasowski can do just fine, in this group. And if they're in form, then I don't necessarily see a need for the team to go run out and get a central striker who's a huge name just because if they're getting results. And like I said, so far so good, I think, for Baird integrating with the team.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel the same way. Josh, what are your thoughts on Corey Baird so far?
Look good, and I think he's delivered in every single way that you imagine he might. He's not the quickest guy out there, but he's a workhorse, and he finds himself in the right spots. And his touch and his passing, I think, needs to sharpen up. He can free a lot of players if he can do that. And so far, that's been not as good as I thought maybe he might. But in the preseason, he played alongside Carlos and Diego. They had some good combination play, and they started to seem to figure it out. So, I think he fits right in there. But you mentioned Mahala. He's the one that sort of jumped out to me. He made the impact last year in CONCACAF Champions League. He's a guy I think that Bob really likes a lot, and he's someone that I think could crack in there if Corey Baird isn't maybe delivering the way they want, or they're looking for a little bit more speed on the outside. Something that he fits in. I want to see him play with Carlos Vela and Diego Rossi. I think that would be a really dangerous trio. But they find goals. I think I mentioned earlier it's just 4 goals in 3 games. But considering that you haven't had the stars, they do have a star number 9. You know, they're not going to use that third DP slot until they figure out what's happening with Brian Rodriguez. Brian got a lot of assists for them last year. Now, he's not a goal scorer, and I think there was frustration with him. He looked like he should be a lot better than he was. I feel like, you know, they can make up with assists and find different ways. Eduardo Atuesta seems to be more active in terms of creating and finding people in the box and a little bit more offensive. Definitely taking up the initiative with free kicks. I mean, he's been amazing with that. So I think the goals come. They don't have to rely on these players too much. Musovski's kind of been a diamond in the rough. That guy also has a nose for goal. So as long as they have Diego or Carlos, you know, they'll be all right. If they get both of them, then you know, all cylinders firing again. I mean, people got to watch out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And quickly, 901 Chastain says, Case touch isn't good for a coach that is all about good football. He has to see it. I think I mean, fair enough comment, but I think you missed. I don't know if you were here when we were talking about Bob Bradley relies on him because 1, he has a relationship, and 2, he sees him as a leader. But fair enough. That's what the show is about. If you guys have more questions or comments, drop them.
Gio, if I could jump in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bob has a relationship and he sees Kay as a leader, but if Kay's not performing, he's going to take him off the field. Like,
yeah,
he's not like performed to a low enough level where I think it's even a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think we're there. But I want to play, guys. We got about like 13 minutes left, so you guys got questions, comments, drop them in there. I'm gonna play Corey Bear's goal right here. Here we go.
In towards Kay. First time it's a blessing for Corey Baird. Incredible extra passing from LAFC. It's a classic LAFC goal turned in by Corey Baird, and the visitors in front on 55 minutes.
And I want to take another look at it. It seemed to me like there was an offsides there. Let's see if this is the right call or not. Nice control there by Rossi. A lot of patience, moving the ball around within the box.
You're right. I think Baird might be off.
Just for a bit, right? I mean, it is going to be close.
So, I mean, that build-up play was nice, was amazing. You know, Eduardo Atuesta to Kay to blessing, and Corey puts it away. So, I mean, I really like that. Unfortunately, on the other end, they got scored on like two minutes right after that, and that's not what you wanted to see happen. But I like that. I like what because who would have thought Corey Baird would be leading LAFC in goals, right? Obviously, no one expected Carlos Vela or Diego Rossi to be injured, but I think one thing I do like about Corey Baird, he is scoring goals, and I feel like he has to score goals, not at the level of Diego Rossi, not at the level of Carlos Vela, but he has to score goals, and he's doing that, you know. And because he scored that goal, they got a tie, they got a draw. Obviously, you want to win, but I think I see a lot of positives from Corey Baird. But I'm also with you, Josh, on Mahala. He's the first guy off the bench, but for whatever reason, say Corey Baird is having a bad game, then yeah, Mahala's going to come in there and has different abilities that he can produce. He can run a lot more. You know, you just do a lot of different things. And I like that if Carlos Vela, if Diego Rossi is healthy, the front three are going to be exciting, rotating there. We have a question here. It says, how are you guys feeling that center back duo so far in 3 games? Alicia, what are your thoughts?
I think by and large they've been good. I mean, they've allowed 2 goals in 3 games. That's, you know, not too bad. There was a breakdown in the goal conceded against Houston. Bob specifically called out Eddie Segura, which he does, I would say, a few times this season. He specifically calls out a player for making a mistake. But it was also a situation where, like, the whole, you know, I mentioned earlier, the defense was scrambling on the play and a little bit throughout the game. That was a play where there was some scrambling, and I don't remember exactly how quickly after the kickoff it came, but pretty quickly. So aside from that, I think they've been really solid. I think in the first 2 games they were, you know, pretty close, more or less close to flawless together. And I think that there's a good reason why they looked so good in CCL together. You know, it's carried, for the most part, carried over so far this season.
Josh?
It does feel more stable. They found something. They were struggled so much last year. I did think that Seattle, who's very, very good. I mean, Raul Ruiz is insane. And I think they struggled to contain him a little bit. But in the end, they did okay. I don't think there's a lot to jump on them for or criticize. But again, I think in front of Pablo Cisniega, I think there's a pretty easy connection there. The communication works, all that sort of stuff. So that, they've done quite well.
Yeah, and I will say I did look at the replay, and it did look like Eddie Segura could have got to that. Potentially, he was just kind of stuck in between. I think the play just kind of happened. I think that's why you saw Bob Bradley call him out, because I saw the replay. I wish I would have downloaded to pull it up, but he was kind of caught in limbo. But obviously, when you're Bob Bradley in your LAFC, you don't want to get caught off guard, and that's what happened. We'll answer a couple more questions, and then we'll get into El Trafico matchup. Edgar says, "Will Baird be the striker if both Vela and Rossi play? He was picked apart by Seattle as a winger, but happens to be in the right place at the right time as well. Look at Seattle; they're going to pick apart a lot of people. They picked apart Chicharito this past weekend, but that's who Seattle is. But I think you also got to look at LAFC didn't have Vela or Rossi, and they still got points. But yeah, I think he's going to be the striker. Alicia, what are your thoughts?"
I think it'll probably come down to him or Musovski kind of rotating, and Musovski seems to be the one that they're kind of casting more as the strict number 9. And I think he's been working a lot on his number 9 play of being that central striker. He does a lot of the donkey work, which I think, he scored several goals since he's joined LAFC, which has been fantastic. But he also, in the games where he's not necessarily getting on the score sheet, he does a really good job of wearing out defenders, making runs to, create space for his teammates, doing link up play, playing with his back to goal and trying to set up his teammates, things like that. And I don't think that you necessarily, he's not going to get on many highlight reels doing that kind of stuff, but that's a pretty important role that the team needs. And obviously, based on the way that LAFC's system works, they need bodies crashing into the box, pretty much continuously. But if you have a player who's occupying space, making life hard for the defenders, and really just making a lot of energy up top, then that makes everyone else's job a lot easier. And so I think he's doing a pretty good job of that so far. And I think it'll probably be some sort of rotation or ride the hot hand between those guys. And Opoku, what I like about him is he tries stuff, right? Nobody else on the team, if he's on his own and there's 3 players on a counterattack who are defending him and he has no option and he doesn't want to wait for, he doesn't think he's going to be able to wait for his teammates to catch up, he will shoot it from 20 yards. Why not? Let's give it a shot, see what happens. And teams need guys like that. You don't want all your players to play like that, but you need somebody who, especially in the Austin game, they needed someone who was taking shots and taking chances, and he was doing that. And he really, I think, played a huge role in pushing them over the line to get the win on opening day.
Yeah. Quickly want to get it. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. I want to get into the LAFC versus LA Galaxy El Trafico matchup. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully we get to see, Carlos Vela, because that's what everybody is expecting. Josh, what are your thoughts on this El Trafico matchup this Saturday?
What are my thoughts? It's just another one in the chapter. It's every match has its own sort of unique story. There's been some stinkers, but most of them have been great. I'm expecting a really competitive match. I mean, outside of what just happened to them in Seattle, the Galaxy got off to a great start. Chicharito's super hot. I want to see him on the field against Carlos. I mean, that storyline's obvious, and we'll see how that pans out. But I think it's nice that some fans will be in the stands, less than 7,000. But it's still, that energy I think is good for this rivalry. That the matches that they had where there was no fans in the stand just felt weird. Because the experience. How much passion that this match does bring, and the energy in both the supporter sides, and not having that just felt, it just felt unnatural, really. So sort of back a return to that, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know on an outcome. I mean, I do think LAFC is proven that it's been probably the better team over the last 4 years, and it does well against the Galaxy. But again, sometimes things just go crazy, and both teams are not super hot, not cold. It's just like they're, I think they're right next to each other in the Western Conference standings. So it's a good time for this first match. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Last Film says go LAFC. Alicia, what are your thoughts on this much anticipated matchup, LAFC versus Galaxy? Hopefully we get Carlos Vela versus Chicharito, but I mean you're gonna have fireworks there.
Yeah, I mean, I expect there's going to be goals in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams are a little bit unhappy with how many goals they let in. Galaxy have started off surprisingly well in attack, but they've also conceded a lot of goals so far, and they've conceded a lot of shots, and that is a wonderful opportunity for LAFC, obviously, based on how they play. So there's a lot of potential there for LAFC to take advantage, but at the same time, I think the Galaxy have gotten a lot better. I think that they have a coach who can adapt within a game and can game plan properly for MLS, this edition of MLS. And we've seen him already make some in-game adjustments that were consequential. So I think, this is, like you said, there have been a few stinkers along the way, and you never know. It's soccer, so there could always be a really drab draw or something. But I think this one's going to have a lot of fireworks, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. These teams tend to score a lot of goals against each other, and even with LAFC, I think being on the right road to being a better defense this season, this team always has had a penchant for letting in goals. So, you wouldn't be shocked if they let in 3, but they scored 4. That's the thing. So. But that would be exciting, right? Like that, the coach and the players may grumble a little bit, but that would be a great game and the kind of thing that I think we'd all love to see.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all hoping for, 4-3 or 3-3 or whatever. It's exciting. I think the biggest question, right? Edgar Casale says is Carlos Vela is questionable. We don't know. We'll find out Thursday. Thursday is the media call, so stay tuned till Thursday. That's when we'll find out, and everybody will find out about Carlos Vela and this much anticipated matchup. But one thing I like about this is both teams, well, LAFC didn't lose, but kind of felt like a loss, right? Against the Houston Dynamo. They felt like they should have won that. And, obviously the Galaxy come off from losing 3-0. So both teams are going to come into an edge to a game that you have to have edge, right? You have to have edge when it comes to this derby, Trafico, you name it. This is the game that you want to do that in. And I want to see the stars shine. I want to see Chicharito have a couple goals. I want to see Carlos Vela play and have a couple goals. And then, just do it out with the last 10, 20 minutes, and the winner let the winner decide there. But I mean, I'm happy we're going to have 7,000 fans. I was hoping, that it'd be a full-packed stadium, but we're going to get there shortly. But it's going to be exciting. I want to see how – I think this game may come down to the second half adjustments. We've seen what LA Galaxy tends to do, and we know how LFC likes to play. But nevertheless, it's the most-anticipated matchup for the MLS and all of Los Angeles. So I really like that. One last question here before we have to sign off. He says, Last Film, do you think Latif works better as a sub? He has a lot of turnovers lately. Quickly, Alicia, what are your thoughts?
No, I think Latif is outstanding, honestly. If he's playing central midfield, he remains underrated at that position. I think he's really an outstanding player, and pretty much every team would love to have a player like him on their side.
Josh, your thoughts quickly?
I mean, you can't replace that work rate and just his ability to get up and down the field nonstop. Again, kind of like Mark Anthony Kaye, like you'd like to see him a bit more effective offensively, just in the attack, maybe a better shot, better touch. He doesn't seem to have much of a shot on goal, Latif, but he doesn't need it. He brings so many other things, and the intangibles are big with him. So he'll do literally whatever Bob Bradley asks him to do, and he'll do it well. But there's a reason I think Bob starts him and relies on him so often, because he continues to produce.
Yeah. Thank you guys for all the great questions. That's going to be it. We're going to wrap the show up. Alicia, let the people know where they can follow you.
Sure. You can find my work on LAFC at angelsonparade.com, and you can find me on Twitter at soccermusings.
Josh, thank you for being on, and let the people know where they can follow you.
Sure. Social media is Twitter. It's at YAY_YEE. It's a story for another time.
Yeah, yee.
Yeah, exactly. You said it right. You got it.
Did I get it right?
And you said it exactly right, actually. That's
okay, perfect.
And LA Daily News or Orange County Register, a bunch of newspapers in Southern California. Check out the LAFC coverage, please.
Yeah, guys, thank you guys for being on. And everybody, going to switch things up from Thursday to Tuesday, talking all things LAFC. Of course, you guys can follow me at Gio Garcia LA. And if you're listening, tune in on Tuesday. We're talking black and gold. And you follow us on all social media platforms. And if you enjoy this podcast, make sure to give this a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your music. For Josh and Alicia, this is Gio. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.